We're down in sunny Chichester today to take a look at a boat that caused a lot of excitement when it first debuted at the Southampton Boat Show in 2024. It was the first ever rib to emerge from British adventure brand Arksen, and it's called the Adventure 8. This is it. And what we want to do today is firstly discover how it's been finessed and adapted and developed since that original prototype we saw in Southampton. And secondly, we want to take it out on the water and see exactly how it performs. Now this is the boat we'll be concentrating on today, the twin-engined Arksen 8. As you can see, very clean, very pretty, due to be delivered to its new owner in Southampton in the next couple of days. But if you walk to the end of the pontoon, you'll see that we also have, just outboard here, the original prototype we saw in Southampton with its single 350 on the transom. That'll be coming out with this as well, so we'll compare and contrast. But as I say, the boat we're concentrating on today is this twin-engine variant. And as we spotted at Southampton, one of the key things you notice before you get on board is how purposeful this hull looks. We've got this raised shear line forward. It gives you plenty of extra protection and security in the bow, but also it's quite a confidence-inspiring thing to see that sort of bow shape ahead of you when you're helming back there. In terms of the hull itself, quite a fine entry, very sharp, cleanly resolved spray rails. It's not a stepped hull. It is in fact a more traditional deep V hull because they want it to be a proper offshore boat. And if we head aft, you'll see that actually, even at rest here, the tubes are not in any way interacting with the water. We've got good static stability from this hull, which is exactly what you want to see. So let's move round towards the back end here and take a look at these engines. Well, clearly, as you can see, they fill up the space on that transom to quite some degree. A pair of 4.2 litre V6 250s. That's the maximum rig for this boat. They tell us that it should, in theory, deliver around about 54 knots. And apparently the single 350 should deliver around about 48. So it's certainly no slouch either way. But as I say, they certainly filled the space. And on the original prototype, they'd yet to resolve the ladder issue in terms of boarding from the water. Well, here they've got quite an ingenious solution. Even though we have less space, we've got this excellent little gadget here on the starboard side, a kind of cylindrical ladder that slides out and then hinges down into the water with fold-out rungs, so you can climb in and out no problem at all. And actually the positioning of that cleat on that moulding on the starboard side will also help you pull yourself out of the water. And talking of these mouldings, I quite like this too. I enjoyed this on the prototype. I enjoy it again here. The fact that we've got proper mouldings framing that aft bench. That again, just like that elevated shear line at the bow, gives you a greater sense of security. You can kind of jam your hip up against the side of those mouldings, feel much more secure, like you're in the boat rather than on it. And you also get, as you can see, I'll step on board, you also get nice little armrests, some drained cup holders, a good bit of tread on top of the mouldings for making your way fore and aft more safely. And this is quite cool. Little scan strut wireless phone chargers, one on either side, so you can keep your phone charged when you're underway. The people at the aft end of this boat are absolutely not forgotten. And they're not forgotten in terms of storage either. I like this a lot. We just pull this little tab here. It's very easily done. Up that comes. And it has the strut, as you can see, that we lacked at the Southampton Boat Show. But the cavity is every bit as good as it was back then. Massive space, about 450 litres they tell me, and it's a great shape as well. As you can see in this instance, we've got the battery switches there on the starboard side, a bit of rubberised matting in the base there to keep your stuff where you put it. It's a drained locker, of course, which helps again, and it's the perfect space for the optional cushion infills that turn this cockpit into a sunbed. And there's also some space here in the forward bulkhead, as you can see, for a little bracket for your optional tables. Just one on this boat, but if we close that lid back up and fasten it, that's very easily done, you'll see that we have multiple brackets for the tables, one on the side there, on the port side, another on the starboard side. And if I quickly scoot through to the bow, just briefly, you'll see we've got another one on the port side up here. So the principle is, you can use that table wherever you like. And because it's got 3 hinges, you can orchestrate it fore and aft or side to side, outboard or inboard. It's a really flexible design. They were originally intended to have the tables available as part of the standard package, but given how complex they are and presumably how expensive they are to manufacture, you can see why they've become an option. In any case, what we also have in here, and I like this a lot, is a wet bar as standard and some fold down seats, again as standard. Now on most ribs you'll tend to get either a wet bar or an aft facing bench. You have to pick one or the other, and here we have both, simply by virtue of this folding mechanism here. Again, really simple catches, like that a lot, and down they come. 2 seats facing aft, another 3 facing forward, so plenty of space for 5 people. As I say, with or without the tables, you can configure it pretty much how you like. And there's also an infill, as we've seen in that aft locker, that slots in this space here. So it really is quite a versatile back end, particularly by the standards of an 8-metre rib. If we just lift these back up though, I'm going to have a little peek beneath these seats, because it doesn't end with clever seats. If we just dip down and look underneath, you'll see that beneath the seats we've got a couple of cavities lined with canvases to keep them nice and tidy. And in there we have the optional, I'll slide it out so you can see, the optional Yeti cool box. You can of course spec a couple under here, and if you don't want to spend the money that the premium Yeti brand attracts, then you can take a cheaper brand of cool box if you prefer. But you can also spec this space with a charging point, so you can have a powered cool box in there as well. So that's particularly useful. And if you come up top and take a look at the wet bar itself, well, what you see here is standard. So we have a sink on the port side, a decent size, and on the starboard side we have a drained ice chest for your bottles of wine. But if you like, you can also opt for a Kenyan grill, in which case you need also to spec the upgraded domestic lithium-ion battery bank to power that. And if you do go with the grill, then of course you have a smaller size of ice box just to make the space to accommodate that. Let's pop that back down. And before we head forward, just take a look at these struts for that T-top. Now the T-top, as at the Southampton Boat Show, that's an option, but it's a really fundamentally impressive piece of equipment. A skeletal structure with taut canvases stretched over the top. We'll see whether that makes any noise at 50 knots or not, but it certainly looks the part, and it's a good size, provides loads of shade down here, made from stainless steel with a really classy sort of matte black finish. Gives it the SUV style, which is exactly what they're going for. If we make our way further forward, we'll ignore the helm station for a second and just pop to the other day space, which is of course the bow that we looked at earlier. First thing we'll do is sit in the forepeak and spin the camera around, because I want to illustrate what the shape of this bow does for you. As you can see, when I nestle into the space, this collar comes right up under my armpit. It makes me feel tremendously safe and secure. So it's really, really positive in that regard. And we've got space for 2 people in the forepeak, as you can see, more space to the side of me, and another 2-man seat facing forward on the leading edge of that console. So it's a good space, this, for 4 people. We've already seen that table bracket, so that's quite useful. Plenty of grab rails as well, which is nice. And we also have these little lips on the edge of the fiberglass as well. And that, of course, is for an infill. And just as the infill aft has a dedicated place to sit, well, it's the same story here. If we just nip back, hit the button, and open up the console, you'll see that down inside the door of the heads compartment, we've got a couple of brackets here. I should say a couple of infills with a neat little bracket to keep them well out of the way. Everything seems to have its place. They tell me that the cushions for the top of that in the future will have a place on the aft bulkhead in this heads compartment. And we'll take another look at that heads compartment in a second, because it really is quite impressive by the standards of an 8-metre rib. We're not quite finished up here in the bow, because they've had a small redesign since the Southampton Boat Show. This part of the boat is relatively similar, although these catches are new and for my money much better. They use a magnetic sort of technique. Can I do it? I can do it. There we are. I was doing it completely wrong there. That's my fault, not the fault of the catch. And if we prop that open, you'll see we got the scan strut compressor here, which means you can inflate all 5 chambers of your collar on this boat, particularly handy on a rib. It comes with a very long inflation tube, but it also means that you can inflate your tender, your stand-up paddle boards, no problem at all, and deflate them when you're finished using them. So it's a really useful option, that. Let's just pop that gear away and spin around again. Have another go at this. There we go, really simple, that. One-handed operation. And if we look forward and remove this bow cushion, well, this has had a small redesign in here as well. On the original boat we saw in Southampton, this entire section basically lifted up to give you access to the chain, and there was a little bit of storage on either side. Well, we don't get that storage now because we've got speakers. We've got a single moulded unit, which they tell me adds a bit of structural strength forward, and we'll talk about that again in a second, because that's not the end of the structural strength story, believe it or not. If we undo that, we still get decent access to the windlass and to the anchor chain just beneath that metal plinth. And you'll notice that we've also done away with the little bits of storage we had on either side. That's filled with speakers now. And if we look up beyond this cushion, well, the step through forepeak, apparently there's no design yet for a boarding ladder, so you can really use this for beaching the boat, but that's underway. And what we do have already is this section here, which we didn't have on the prototype, and this is a kind of structural rigid aluminium box section that fits in here at the bow. Just gives you extra reassurance in terms of the boat's ability to handle rough seas, because it's not just designed to look like an SUV, it's designed to be a proper adventure boat, precisely as you'd expect from Arksen. And if you look in there, well, you'd want a lid, wouldn't you, topped with this S-deck, so you can use it as a step through forepeak if you want. But even so, it's a useful spot, even as things stand, to chuck your lines, keep them out of the way. And of course, because you've got a nice broad rigid moulding at this forepeak, you've still got plenty of space for a pair of dedicated cleats on either side of those rails. But let's spin around now and head back aft to the helm station, because that is a pretty interesting spot. Now, as you can see, if I move around the back here, you see that the helm is offset to the port side, so we're kind of bumping up a little against that port tube, freeing up a proper size of starboard walkway, which is a very natural way to do it. And it's quite cool that the skipper sits on the port side, because then the throttles are in the centre and kept well out of harm's way. And not only does it make things that little bit safer if you've got kids running up and down this walkway, it also frees up this corner of the console for that heads compartment we looked at earlier. So let's have a look at that again right now. Swing that open and pop down inside. Well, what we get in here straight away is pretty impressive. It's a good size. It's very bright because we've got these frosted windows on both sides of the console. We've got a neat little sink down there. And this is new, a nice little fabric kind of shelving system. There's good space in here, as I say. And also, this is not the kind of makeshift porta potty that you would expect on most compact ribs, where very often, actually, the heads compartment is an afterthought. This is a proper electric loo with its own dedicated holding tank. So I'll pop inside, I'll spin around, and I'll show you the kind of perspective. I mean, when I'm sitting here, I've got a good foot above my head. You can almost stand up in here, actually. They tell me that there's headroom of about 5'8", which is pretty exceptional, you have to say. And the fit out remains attractive. We've got a couple of little hooks down here for towels. We've got a little button to free yourself, a little light switch there, and there are no rough edges. Everything feels very nicely finished in here. It feels actually like the premium product that they tell us it is. And another very fine example of that is the fact that, well, they're right there. If we peek out, a couple of impact mitigation helm seats. They're not options, they come as standard on this boat. They also come with bolsters, and if I fold that bolster down, excellent lateral support both for your thighs and for your shoulders. And if I move into the helm position itself, well, there have been some welcome changes here since that prototype. And the first for me, and most significant, is this screen. It had kind of inbuilt ridges that kind of flexed your vision a little. Felt slightly odd. They look quite cool, but weren't very practical. Well, that's gone. a nice clean screen now, good visibility. It's quite an elevated console actually, which I like in terms of what it promises for protection. And what we have here is a couple of 12-inch plotters as standard, plus a compass again as standard. In fact, everything you see here is as standard except for the Helm Master joystick and this little phone holder up on the dash top. Everything else you see here at the dash is part of the standard package, including that foot brace down below and those seats, the Garmin VHF, those twin 12-inch plotters, as I say. Not a lot of switch gear, but you don't particularly need it. 3 cup holders over here, and the switch gear you do get, well, it's all the stuff you actually want. So it's a very nicely arranged helm station with good grab rails on the port side, and that's quite important because, of course, what we have here is a helm console that's offset to the port side, freeing up that entire starboard side for a proper walkway. We've already enjoyed the benefits of that as we head fore and aft to the bow, but of course the fact they put the skipper on the port side means that the throttles go in the centre, keeps them well out of the way of this starboard walkway, well out of the way of kids running about on your boat. In any case, I think what we need to do is go and grab the guys from the Arksen office, get these 2 boats out and see if their performance is as much fun as their design. Well, we're out on the water now, and as you can see, we've got a bit of a swell running. We've got unchecked southerlies rolling through here, so we've got 2 to 3 footers. I'd say the odd 3 to 4 footer now and again, so it's quite challenging seas to get up to speed. We've had a good play, and we've managed to get her up to a decent speed, but before we show you what the drive is all about, I just want to have a quick chat a little bit more about the helm, because there's a couple of things I forgot. There's a lot to talk about on this boat. The first of those is this little board behind me here, just tucked in behind the helm seats in its own bracket. Well, that's the infill for the sunbathing pad at the back end of the cockpit there. Again, as I say, everything on this boat seems to have a dedicated home. And I should also point out that the fuel filler is on the port side here of the console. I should say on this boat, 2 fuel fillers, because when you spec this boat with twin engines, you also change the single 495 litre tank for a pair of 250 litre tanks, just for a bit of extra redundancy in that system. So you access that around on the port side, as I say. And just as on the starboard side, the proliferation of really good grabbing points, well, they're everywhere, so it feels really good and secure, even if you're making your way fore and aft along that port side. What we also have here at the helm, and I like this too, I've mentioned some of the detailing before, the orange accents you see in some of the upholstery further aft, where we see the same thing just below the brow of the dash there. That looks pretty cool. And also it's worth mentioning that even though the wheel is not adjustable, the seats are, they go fore and aft, so it's not difficult to find yourself a comfortable position here. And having criticised the height of these seats when I was at the show, when you stick the bolsters down and plonk your bum, well, yeah, I mean, when you're sitting back aft like this, nestling into the lumbar, they do seem a touch low for that elevated console, but really, who drives like that? You move yourself forward on that seat, perch your foot on the grab rail, interact with the touch points, and then you can see the bow of the boat. And to be honest, even if you can't, the fact that we got those nice elevated anodized black grab rails on the forepeak there, they kind of act like crosshairs. It's really quite a satisfying thing, so you never really lose sight of the bow at all. In any case, clearly what we want to do is get this boat up and underway, show you exactly what it's all about. So Nick, if you want to come back behind the console, we'll have a little play.
Will do.
Okay. Right, we'll spin her around and head across the seas, put them on our port beam first. Got those engines tucked in, as I say, operating on single lever. Give her a little bit of trim, and already, what are we doing, 20 knots pretty much straight away. The grunt you've got available under your right hand here is just huge. I'll give you a little taste of that in a second when we get a flatter bit. Just nip over these couple of swells first. You really can just, in a blink of an eye, shift yourself up to 30, 35, 40 knots. And by manipulating the leg angles, as well as the ribs, you can just lift up that bow whenever you need just to negotiate a swell. You can shift that waterline way off, get lots of extra
efficiency into the drive. And actually the efficiency here, I've got to say, is pretty impressive, particularly around about 30 knots. I'll see if I can get them up to that sort of speed across these seas here. I'd have to say, even with these twin 250s on the transom, I've got to say the fuel efficiency is really quite good, particularly around about 30 knots. We just ease ourselves up that way. You'll see the fuel flow lifts to around about 60 litres per hour, which is of course 2 litres per nautical mile. Now if I just settle back down and have a chat with you about that, as I say, we've got twin 250 litre tanks. So if we're saving 20% redundancy in the system, we've got 400 litres to play with. So of course 30 knots, 2 litres per nautical mile, we got a nice easy range. Yeah, 500 litres, 20% redundancy in the system. That's the way we do it at MBY, because we're very safety conscious. So with 400 litres to play with, we're looking at a range of about 200 miles, which is very serviceable indeed. Now we haven't yet jumped on the single 350, but speculation from the Arksen guys suggests that we ought to be seeing fuel flow that puts this boat only about 10 or 15% higher in terms of fuel usage and cruising speed than the single engine rig. Now that's not a bad compromise at all, particularly when you consider the kind of grunt that we have at our disposal. Now it's a shame the seas are kicking up quite so much as they are today, because you can't quite illustrate just how much grunt you do have under your right hand. But it really is a tremendous amount of stuff. And when we're running at 30 knots, as we are now, we're only seeing revs of about 3,500 RPM. Now this boat tops out, of course, at about 6,000 RPM. So these engines are tremendously unstressed, seeing us across this seascape at a nice fast cruising speed. But what we'll do is we'll turn to starboard now and run a little with the seas, see how she goes there. And as I do so, I'm going to say one other trait I've noticed about this boat, despite these seas, is the fact that this is a dry boat. It really is. There's been a little bit of water ingress at the back end when you turn with the wind on your beat and it's splashing up and just making its way onto that aft bench. But realistically, it's been dry right away as far aft as that wet bar. Certainly dry for us at the helm, very nicely sheltered. And as you'll see, when we're running with this sea, with plenty of trim, you can just settle down at 20 knots. What do we got? Around about 40 litres per hour. So again, 2 litres per nautical mile. It's very comfortable. There's no grabbing by the bow, no steering by the bow. It's quite relaxed, so I can even take my hand off wheel and throttle and just ease into it. But if you want to have a little bit of play, well, again, there's loads of grunt there when you want it. We're about 50% trim here, which I think Nick is suggesting is a little bit too much, but we'll have a little play and see how we go. Look at that, a little bit much. Oh, that's lovely. That's about 40 knots, 4,500 RPM, and about 105 litres per hour. It is a tremendous amount of fun.
Well, we're back alongside now, and I have to say those two boats really did look after us very well in some quite challenging sea conditions. We did have a go on the original prototype with the single 350, and it did a tremendous job. We got 42 knots out of it, even in those seas. And as I've already pointed out, it should be capable in ideal conditions of around about 48 knots, which leads me to suggest that if you're a regular family user, this boat with a single 300 would do everything you need, take you well in excess of 40 knots. And as I say, for most family users, that'll be plenty. As for the twin rig, we can certainly see plenty of potential commercial applications where this would come in handy. But even if you're not a commercial user, you just want some extra grunt, maybe for water sports, maybe just for the fun of the drive, well, this delivers that in spades. As for the range, Well, as I pointed out at the very start, this is the first rib from Arksen, the Discovery range. There'll be another 4 Discovery ribs in the future, taking the fleet to 5. That'll be the 10, 12, 6 and 7. But that's for the future, as I say. For now, what we ought to do is celebrate the fact that this is designed and built in Britain, because it's a really very good boat indeed. It has that lovely multi-purpose tough guy kind of SUV aesthetic. It combines that with excellent performance at sea, a really good hull, a lovely dry ride. Feels very heavyweight and well put together as well. And when you step on board, it does have that premium feeling that Arksen's been going for. It feels like quite a special place to be. Add all those things together, and even though it costs £200,000 including VAT for the base package, you'd have to say it's a very compelling package indeed. Now, whether you agree with that or not, please do leave your comments in the section below. We'd love to hear from you. If you've enjoyed this video, hit the like button, and if you want to see more videos like this in the future, then please do subscribe to the Motorboat and Yachting channel.